Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor and I'll be talking about the game Glass Manners that I'm working on. It's been about a month since the last video I published. I wanted to get something done earlier as usual, but I haven't had that much time to actually work on the game, so it took a while. But in this time I actually did get some things done. So for example, I did a whole balancing pass on the game because it felt like the game was a little bit too difficult for what it's meant to be. I did some work on adding mouse input to the game because that was something that playtesters would say they were missing, because previously you could only really control it via keyboard, but that felt kind of clumsy. So now you can control your character with the mouse. Did some small, obviously a lot of bug fixes, a lot of small tweaks here and there to improve the gameplay experience. But there's two major things that I want to talk about in this video. That is throwing items and a new trap entity, which were added to the game. And so this video will just be probably a short one, just showcasing what I've worked on and why I did that. So let's just jump straight into it. Let's talk about throwing items first. So basically, this is one of the ideas that I had just randomly had while showering. We were in a playtesting session and we were in the situation where I was stuck in like a lava pool and I was missing like a rock to basically go back. But then the other guy who I was playing with, didn't want to place a slab on this lava tile just to pass me a rock. So I was like, okay, it could be really cool if we can actually throw items across lava pools here, so that we don't have to place a slab if we don't want to, because currently that's kind of what you have to do. And it's one of these ideas where I think like it is an interesting mechanic. Like it can be helpful in some cases. It can also create some chaos in some cases. So for example, you can also throw an item into another player, and that'll disrupt what they're actually doing, which currently is intentional, just to create that kind of chaos and to embrace that really. And it's also like I tried to make this really fun to use. So I added some particle systems, I added like a sound effect, I added a lot of interactions. So for example, if you throw a coal into an emitter, that will actually land in the emitter and automatically charge it. My favorite is actually throwing a coin into a trader, because then you'll have another particle effect, another sound effect that will actually play. And you can throw items into chests, you can throw items onto slab or onto lava to create a slab. There's all these fun little interactions that you can do. And so I think this is a good small addition that makes the game feel more polished and more complete, so that you can have these small, also kind of skill checks in a way, because it can make you faster, it can make you more careful with your resources. So for example, if you plan to build like a bridge over a lava pool, now you don't need to walk on a slab, because walking on a slab decreases its use, right? So you can only do that, I think currently seven times. But now I don't have to walk on a slab to create this bridge. I can also throw items on there. You can also be slightly faster. Like if you, for example, throw coal into an emitter, you don't have to walk that entire distance. You can throw it from some distance away, or even better, in some cases where the emitter is actually surrounded by lava, for example, you can throw it across the lava. That'll save you some time. So there's the small skill element, which obviously this is not a competitive game, but I think that can be fun to master, especially if you play the game for a bit longer. It adds chaos, which I think I've said this before. I'm trying to embrace the chaos as much as I can. It's fun to use, and it's also helpful in some scenarios. So I think this is a good addition to the game, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. The other thing that I added to the game is traps. So in the last video that I uploaded, I showed this new level that I added. And this new level includes new entities or new monsters, which are the mage and the knight. The mage always felt pretty balanced, like he's pretty strong with the fireballs that he's throwing, but he's also pretty easy to kill. The knight felt kind of OP because he's also very strong, but he's very hard to kill. That was kind of the intention, but it turned out maybe a bit too hard. Because the knight is invincible from one direction against the light beam, there is really only two ways you can kill him. You can either point a light beam from two directions onto the knight, in which case the knight can only protect itself against one of these beams and will be damaged by the other. Or you can bait a mage into firing at you, then dodge their bullet, and the bullet will actually hit the knight. The former one is really difficult because the knight also just keeps moving, so it's kind of, you can damage him for a little while, but it didn't feel very good. You can kind of trap him sometimes by just placing like mirrors around him or something, but that felt kind of hacky. Or not hacky, but it's really hard to do, and it didn't feel very intuitive. Getting a mage to fire at you and then hitting the knight is really, really fun. That feels really rewarding to do, but it's also very difficult because you have to have that specific setup where a mage has a direct line of sight to the knight that you want to kill. Again, the knight is actually constantly moving, so you have to time that. You have to even have a mage in the first place, right? Which sometimes just isn't the case because you've killed all the mages or they're in a different area of the section. And then you obviously also need to constantly watch out to not be killed by void eyes or by the knight itself or something. So when that works, that setup, it's really rewarding, but when it doesn't always work. And so you need some way of killing knights that is kind of more reliable. And so that's what this trap is for, long story short. So you can basically buy a trap at a trader for 1 stone. That was the other part where stones in the second level didn't actually have much of a purpose anymore. In the first level, stones are required for crafting chests and for placing slabs. Placing slabs doesn't apply to the second level anymore because we don't have lava. And crafting chests also doesn't really apply anymore because, first of all, you probably still have chests from the first level, and you're not going to have an endless amount of chests because you have to carry them. And secondly, we actually spawn a lot of chests in the world generation in the second level, which means you can just reuse those. And so this is kind of this middle ground where like, okay, we've got a use case for the stone and we make it easier to kill the knight. And so you craft a trap, you place the trap somewhere, you are careful that you don't walk in yourself or your friends. And then you basically bait a knight into walking into this trap. However you want to do this, you can either put it on the path where the knight is walking, or you can just place it somewhere and then bait the knight into charging you, and it'll be stopped by this trap. And if the knight walks into this trap, he'll be trapped for a few seconds, which means you can now either redirect a beam onto the knight, because now the knight is actually vulnerable, or you can, if you're able, you can now bait a mage into firing at this knight, if that's possible to do. And so it's, again, one of these mechanics where it creates dynamic elements, because you can modify the world. It's not some static thing that is there. It's not. You can have a direct impact. It's another way of killing knights. It's also, again, more way to create chaos, because players are also being trapped by this. Which means you have to also watch out for traps that other people place there, or maybe even yourself if you've got, which is especially fun if it's getting darker and then maybe you don't see them. And so again, I think this is a valuable addition to the game. It's, again, a kind of smaller feature, but it's really important to have in there to make the game feel more complete and also just more playable. Okay, so those were the two main features that I worked on in the past month. Obviously, I added also some other stuff, but I didn't think that was really interesting to show in the video. Anyway, I hope the next video will be out sooner. Again, as always, you can also catch me on Twitch streaming if you're interested. And then thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.